thanks guys for coming. You don't know me and you don't like me, but I'm here. My name is Benjamin Rivers, and I am a teacher here at OCAD University. I'm one of the instructors who talks about game design. And we have a really great program here where we teach people to make games not in 4 years, but in 12 weeks. So we kind of run through courses like an indie game course, and it's something a little unique, and we're sort of feeling a lot of it as we go through, but it's actually pretty cool. So some of you here have been through the course, and so far don't hate me too much. It means it's working, but this means that we're getting a lot of cool new people coming into the scene, into the community here in Toronto, which is why we're here, because we're here for the second IGDA Toronto Rant Rave. Anyone here come to the last one? Yes. If you don't remember, that still means you were probably there. But anyway, we're doing the second one. We're going to have a whole bunch of speakers, each doing rants on their own topics, and it's going to be fantastic. You may feel joy or anger or sadness, but that's kind of what this is all about. So hold on to your seats and introduce everyone. The man that everyone will rant about by the end of the evening, which is Ryan Rave. Woo!
Speaking of joy, anger, and sadness, it's Ryan Craig. Ben memorized his thing. I'm going to read it off a rad piece of paper. So we usually do event announcements, so here's the stuff that's coming up. Taffy is the Toronto Animation Arts Festival International. I think this is the second year running, so it's coming up on July 26th to 28th. It's going to be at Taurus Key. So you can buy early bird passes this week, and they run out. You're going to pay more. So buy them this week if you want to go. Mully Jam is a game jam. Who likes game jams? I know you do. So Mully Jam is a jam based around the fake Twitter account Peter Mullydo, which is a fake version of Peter Molyneux, and it's sort of like parodying his game ideas, but then people actually make this jam where you actually build the things that came out of the fake Peter Molyneux account. That's pretty cool. So that's actually like a worldwide event, and the Toronto chapter of that, or the Toronto installation of that, is going to be at Yukon Games on July 5th weekend, so coming up real soon. Toronto is a social gathering that's happening tomorrow night. As if you couldn't get your fill of video game stuff enough. Tomorrow night, it's happening at Get Well. That's at Dundas and Ossington, because we just can't use more monthly socials. So go check that out. And the Queer Arcade is happening July 27th to 28th. It's going to be at Video Fag on 187 Augusta in Kensington Market. July 27th to 28th. Got it. Cool. And then local game releases. Give it up for Ben Rivers, who put out Home, his horror game on iOS. We're involved with Michael Todd Games making Electronic Superjoy, which is now available for play and purchase. And Final Game Studios is releasing its first game called Circuit Panic. That's going to be on Google Play this weekend, this Sunday. So check that one out as well. Give it a hand. As always, this is your Toronto Chapter IGDA, so if you want anything announced at any of our meetings, let us know. We usually put a call out asking if we've forgotten anything. If we forgot anything, please forgive us, but let us know if you want something announced, a game release, or an event, but not a job posting. A few people to thank before we get rolling. OCADU, which is where we are right now, thanks so much for supplying the room, in particular to Emma Westacott and Benjamin Rivers for filling out all the owners' paperwork. Thank you guys so much. I want to thank our speakers in advance and our sponsors. Our gold sponsor, Hold Your Applause, Ubisoft Toronto, silver sponsor, City of Toronto, and KPMG. Our bronze sponsors are Get Set Games, Emmanuel Edelman's Media's Law, Massive Damage, Academy of the Impossible, and Big Viking Games. Applaud now. And the very last thing I'll say is it's kind of an interesting, weird evening tonight, because Toronto is hosting a dignitary from the Casual Games Association tonight, which is pretty cool. So Big Viking Games is actually taking care of the social tonight down at Versailles, which is a super fancy joint on King Street. You know the one with like the torches outside? You know Versailles? Yeah. Versailles, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going down to Versailles after the rants. We get all angry and fired up, and then we'll go cool off with a beer. So please join us at Versailles after the rants. But to start the rants off, I would like to tell you about a very talented, very funny individual, and really skilled game producer who couldn't be here tonight. So please welcome instead Andy Smith.
So obviously Danielle and Ryan asked me to host this event. I said yes, and then I said, "What hosts do? What am I going to do?" And they're like, "Well, you just get up there and ramble on a mic. People will come up, you'll give them the mic, and then shut up for 5 minutes, and then talk more." So I'm going to do that, which will be exciting, and we'll get to that very soon. But to start, I'm actually doing the very first rant, and my rant is on how bad moderators are at events such as this. So to start, the first problem that people have, moderators have, sorry, is they don't follow their own rules. You know, moderators will set up times where, like, you know, your talk is over after 5 minutes, and then they'll just ramble for 15 minutes. So I'm going to set an actual timer and talk to that, because that'll be super fun if I don't screw it up real bad. So one of the big problems I have with moderators at events is question and answer times at the end of it. Many of you, I'm sure, were at a previous event similar to this, which ended, it was a nice panel, it was a lot of information being passed along, and there were questions to be answered. But people didn't actually ask questions. It goes a lot like this. It's, it's like, now we're going to open the floor for question and answers, and we have a question that I'd like to ask our panel right here. Someone goes, yes, like I have a question. We go, okay, you, up in the back, what's your question? And they go, well, when I was a 12-year-old boy playing video games, I played, Super Mario Brothers, and it was this beautiful experience. And then they talk, and they talk, and they talk, and they talk, and they talk some more, and then they might reference something that someone has said to try and like wrap it around. And then they end with, like, what do you think of that? And the people on the panel, every time, you'll see them, and they sit here, and they'll just go like, So what you're feeling right now, that awkwardness, is what you feel on the panel when you're waiting for someone to stop talking and get to a question. But you can't be rude. As a person on a panel, you're trying to, you're speaking for your company, you're speaking for yourself. You can't be a dick to that person. But the moderator should. The moderator who's standing right here should say, like, do you have a question? And they put up their hand, and the second they go, I think you should go, No, you don't. You don't have a thought right now. You're asking a question. These people have thoughts, and you want to hear more of them. So give them something to tell you about that someone else might care about, and then we can move on from there. But people will never, ever do that. And it's the worst. That is actually the worst. I started with the number one. And everyone's been there, and it's always the worst. You get the same problem with people who are just completely off topic, and they'll be like, what did you think of the twist ending in Legend of Zelda Twilight Saga? The person's like, this is a freemium iOS. Like, I thought it was pretty dope, I guess. But it would have been better if it was behind a paywall. And then, the second part of that problem is the speakers themselves. So, as someone who's been known to just ramble like an idiot over top of everybody, I happen to know that there's always someone in every group that just kind of steals the whole thing, and they just ramble. So if there's a question, that person, and it's not me, it's someone like me who would be on a panel. The second the question is going out, that person knows their answer, and they want to make sure that they say their answer first, so everyone on the panel knows that they suck, and that you're the smartest. And this happens because the moderator will just throw questions. And it's basically, you're in the 5th grade, you're playing volleyball, and you've got Brian, who's 7'6", and he stands at the front of the net, and you've got someone just lobbing balls over. And you're like, come on, everybody, let Andy get a try. And Brian's just like, just over and over and over again. And so what the person lobbing the questions needs to do is to specifically say, like, hey, not Ryan Creighton, literally anyone else. What do you think of this thing? That's what needs to happen. And then that person, who maybe didn't get to say a whole lot, can say anything. Like just, even if it's just like, you know, please introduce yourselves, and Ryan goes, I'm Ryan, this is Matt, that's George, and that's it. So I'm coming up with my time, because I'm paying attention, because I'm a good moderator, and so I'm going to use my last 35 seconds to tell you what I'm going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be timing every single person during their rant. Yeah. And I'm going to yell at you when 5 minutes is up. I will give you a slight, like, hey, bro, you've got 1 minute left, when you've got 1 minute left. But then I'm going to talk over you at 5 minutes until you shut up. And I can do that, and I will wear you down. So we're going to keep this thing speeding along. If, for some reason, we end up early, I'm going to bring some of you guys down here, and we're going to just do it live. 5 minutes, one. That was dope. Okay, so our first speaker tonight for the rant is Matt Robinson with "There is no definition of game."
Thank you. Just give me a second here.
Here, this thing works. That goes that way, that goes that way.
Excellent.
Okay.
Technology, folks. It's wonderful. I got a confession to make. I don't really have a rant. I'm just really, really thirsty. I'm totally going to backwash into this water and then mix them around. And then try and guess who gets it later on.
10 seconds to start.
I start when I'm damn well ready. All right, so I want to talk about the definition of game. It's appropriate that we're here at OCAD because, frankly, this is going to sound a bit like a lecture. I used to actually lecture at a university, so I apologize. And I'm going to immediately start off with a bait and switch and talk about art. Yes, people, you are stuck listening to games and art for the next 5 minutes. Tough, the doors are now locked. Live with it. You get to go and drink later on. Forget that. I'm using the Oxford Dictionary here, not because a dictionary is a great repository of knowledge, but I trust the people at Oxford to have made a good faith effort to actually come up with a definition for a word. If they're experts in something, it's coming up with definitions. And they define art as the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, producing works to be appreciated primarily for the beauty and emotional power, breathe. So there's three things I really like about this that really, I think, makes this a good definition. You have the creative aspect, there's a creator, you have appreciation, there's an audience, and you have expression. So communication between a creator and an audience, cool, I get that, I buy that. The problem with this definition, if you think about it for any amount of time, is that it's not really all that definitive. That is, you can think about just any action somebody can take and it can be considered art. So for example, somebody skipping happily along the street. Well, if you're doing it deliberately, well, that's a creative act, and I guess you're expressing yourself, and if other people see it and then they're happy, well, hey, skipping down the street is art. Hopefully at least one person in this audience would be willing to challenge me on whether or not that's really art. Otherwise, I think you're not really paying attention. But the point is that what we ultimately accept as art in any condition is subjective. That is, it's ultimately a negotiation between the creator and the audience. So if the creator creates it as art and the audience accepts it as art, it's art by any reasonable definition, even if it involves somebody standing naked on top of a stage, slapping themselves with raw meat. It doesn't really matter what it is, it's just this interpretation. The aristocrat. There you go. A big part of why this is because art really precedes language. And this is actually sort of interesting because art is something that's very innately human. You never have to worry about art going away because people do it as naturally as anything they do. We have this desire to express ourselves in ways which doesn't fit directly into factual language, and that's where art comes in. And because of this, we can actually say there's no definition of art. We can describe it, we can describe common cases that people commonly accept as art, but we can never define it. We can never create that one true objective test which acts as a definition where you can draw a line between this is art and this is not art. So having dealt with the age-old problem of how you define art in about 2 minutes, I don't know why that took everybody so long, we can now switch over to games. So game and play, like art, are also very innately human. In fact, you can go further because play is also beyond humans. Animals play, and you can even see if a group of animals play together, you can see they actually have these very informal rules about how they're supposed to behave or accepted standards of behavior in their little improvised game. So it's fair to say what is ultimately a game is really up to the creator and the audience. If the creator creates something that's a game, and the audience accepts it as a game, then it's a game. There's no really good objective standard here to say that it is or is not a game, so the whole thesis of this microtalk is that there really is no definition of game. We can describe things that are common to a bunch of different games, but we can never come up with that defining hard line. And we still do this, and you can see these discussions crop up again and again, and I'm going to have a couple examples here in a minute. And the sad part of this, which I don't really want to rant about this, I'm more disappointed in it than directly upset, but we have this tendency to make these definitions, and we're not really defining it in order to rigidly define what a game is, we're defining it to exclude things. We don't define game as much as we define not game. And the phrase that comes up all the time is real games. That's not a real game. Or what you're making is not a real game, or this is a pure game, or this is a better game, or this is true game. So the most common one, which sort of precipitated this for me, is that most recently there's been a lot of discussion. You'll see any major article now in the gaming press about Twine always has, well, there's some debate as to whether Twine is a real game. And my answer is you don't get to decide that. It's not up to you. There's no abstract line to say it is or it's not a game. And we've had it in the past over stupid things like technology, like can you make a real game with Flash, or can you make a real game with Game Maker, and so on, so on, so on. And we build up these useless hierarchies that are really only about excluding. And I talked about art at the beginning because the way you can think about this is that we've had, as game developers and game enthusiasts, had to deal with the case of games not being art, which is really the same thing. It's not about defining art, it's about defining not art. That is, constructing a definition of game, or art in this case, such that we can exclude games. Not because you have this beautiful definition of art, because you really don't like games. And this is all about definitions as an attempt to delegitimize something. But maybe I'm not being fair. Maybe there really is a good definition of game. So let's go back to the fine people of the Oxford Dictionary and define game.
That's how it's going to go from now on, unless you guys can physically stop me from doing that. I think you did exceptionally well. That was awesome. Did I cut you off on like your last slide?
That was the very end.
That's perfect. So if anyone wants to hear the last sentence, ask him afterwards. So next we've got Brendan Sinclair with Get Over Yourself and Start Talking About How Great You Are, which is something that's very close to my heart.
Okay, 5 minutes, let's get through this. I'm going to talk tonight about self-promotion. My name is Brendan Sinclair. Where do we go? I'm a games journalist. I'm the enemy. I write for Games Industry International and US Gamer, a site that we just launched a couple weeks ago. I spent the better part of the last decade writing news for GameSpot. I've spent 14 years writing about games for a living, but chances are you don't really know who I am. And part of this has been utterly deliberate because I've spent that career basically avoiding any and all attempts at self-promotion. Basically, self-promotion is gross, it's the way I always looked at it. It's got some harmful effects. It might be naive of me, but I like to believe in a meritocracy where, good work is rewarded, good results. Self-promotion kind of, tips the scales. It also takes these passion projects that we do, and it turns them into products, things that we have to show, things that we have to market. That's also gross. And it's actually really time-consuming. I can't tell you how long I spent on this friggin' thing. It's time and effort that could be better spent actually doing what we do, making games, writing about, things we care about. And then finally, people just think you're, a conceited asshat if all you do is talk about how great you are. At least that's what I kind of used to really believe in. And this guy indirectly changed my mind. It's self-promoter extraordinaire, wet bush analyst Michael Pachter, who some of you might know. Now, every year at E3, he has a big party with the rich and powerful in the gaming industry. This year, my US Gamer colleague Mike Williams scored an invite. Ask me later and I'll let you know how. But he got to rub elbows with all the heads of the publishing houses, and he shilled US Gamer for us. And he told every one of them two things. He told them we got Jeremy Parrish writing for us, and every last person was like, Jeremy Parrish, awesome. I loved his work at OneUp. The guy's a rock star, kick ass. And then he said, we have Brendan Sinclair writing for us. And every single one of them except one said, who? And the thing was, the one guy who didn't say who knew who I was, he hated me. He was the founder of Game of the Year award-winning studio, who I wrote a story about a couple of years ago that cast the studio in not so great a light. And he held a white-hot burning grudge against me. Mike took great glee in telling me about this. And the thing was, this made me sad. And it took me a little bit of thinking to figure out why I was so sad. Was it because this person who I had great professional respect for and no personal animosity about just hated me? Or was it the fact that here was a room full of rich and powerful people, many of whom I'd interviewed multiple times, who had no idea who the hell I was? And eventually, I came to the awful realization that it was the latter. It was the blow to my ego that, they just didn't know or care about me. And then that actually kind of hurt twice as much because I realized that I'd been two-faced the entire time. And that it was really much more that this entire time I've been working under the assumption that I didn't have this ego to bruise, and that was why I didn't do all this awful self-promotion stuff. So now the veil's been pulled from my eyes, and I'm trying to get out there and be a little bit more, active in self-promotion. It doesn't always work out as I intend, though I really like that response. The one thing that I hope everyone in here can kind of take away from this, and the one thing that keeps, me doing things like this, even when I think I'm about to throw up instead of, actually talk to people on stage.
1 minute.
Is who is really the person out there with the bigger ego? Is it the guy that busts his ass to let everyone know how great he is and make sure his work doesn't get ignored? Or is it the person who thinks they're so great they shouldn't have to? Thank you.
Has practiced and presumably has timed that out. Because you gave yourself an extra 30 seconds for laughter.
Can I have that?
You could have come with a few more slides in there. That would have been perfect. Next, we have someone whose name I'm going to butcher. Ian. Talking about version control.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name's Ian Zamwich. I'm a teacher at Durham College. I teach in the games program. I teach kids how to program who are artists, and typically artists, you don't think they'd be good at programming. I'm going to talk to you about something pretty practical. No lovey-dovey stuff about are we making art or anything like that. That's right. Instead, I'm going to talk to you guys about version control for your code, for your art, and all that kind of stuff. So here we go. What is version control? Well, this is a really boring kind of setup here, but basically version control is like an undo button for your entire project. So you have hundreds of files and all kinds of different assets. This is like a big undo button that isn't quite real time. You have to commit to it from time to time as you go. Okay, so what's bad that people do all the time? Well, they number their file names. And I had an animation of this for some reason. The rest. You do this, right? Project 1, Project 02. Oh yeah, that's right, I can have more than one. Then you get down to here and you're like, Project 3 final. But then you get a revision and you gotta do final 2. Then final. Then final, really final. It's bullshit, because which one is the current working file? You don't know. So how do you solve this? Use a version control repository. And what that lets you do is basically have one file. So that one texture that you got, it's just that one texture. It's always the current working version that you're on. And then inside the repository, just sort of like a database that sits beside your working files, inside that is where it keeps a differential. It keeps all the different changes in what are called change sets.
in that database, so that at any time you can move forwards and backwards through time. It's kind of like Time Machine on the Mac, or like every other solution that's on Windows, for doing backup and restoration. But a little smarter. It's more developed for code and things like that. Thank you. The next thing is that manually reverting. If any of you are doing this and using zip files to back up your projects periodically, you're doing it wrong. Stop doing that and do what I tell you. What you're doing here is you're basically taking an entire snapshot of your project and you're labeling it with a date. And I've done this before in the past. I know lots of people do it. Bad way to do it. What you want to do, look, right here, there's one that says 2013-2. Well, what time was that done? What are all the differences and what are the changes between these files? How do we solve it? We use version control, and then we use diffs. We basically can tell at any point in time through our entire history what's changed, what happened. Well, the junk.cs file was removed, but the player.cs file was added. And then inside the game file, which was modified, that's what the M means, one line was removed at 96, and that was score ++, and instead it was replaced with score -. Oh, that's why this game is breaking right now, because the score is going down, not up. So, the next thing we've got, manually merging. If you are, version control, it's cute when you're using it on your own because it's basically a backup utility, it's an undo button. But it becomes much more powerful when you're working in large groups. It lets you do things like branch, and it lets you do things like merge. And what that means is basically, you could be working on the exact same file as somebody else. They're working at the top, you're working at the bottom. And you can merge those together. The version control system, unless you really work on the exact same line, is probably going to merge those files without any intervention from you. And even if you do have to manually merge, it's way less painful than when you do it yourself, and you're like, which lines did you edit? I think I edited 6, 27, 28, and 42. 6 being my birthday, and 42 being the answer to everything. So, 1 minute. Okay, perfect. So what do? We use branching and merging. And this is literally a graph example from Mercurial or Git or one of those source control repositories where you can see that I've branched off to the side, done some changes, and then merged them back in. And all of that can be done, like if you want to experiment or something like that, you can branch and work in an experimental branch. And if it worked out, merge it back in. If it fails, if everything goes to shit, don't merge it back in. Finally, what is version control not used for? It sounds really convenient, but don't use it as a backup system. It's not something that you're supposed to take your entire hard drive and turn into one giant repository. It's not built for that. The next thing is, don't use version control as an asset manager. I know some people are sort of forced to. They have to use locking files and stuff like that in their projects because they're using binary files that don't have any way to properly merge. But don't use it as an asset manager. There are asset managers out there for that.
And that's time.
Woo!
I'm Dante, and I wanted to make games since I was about this tall. And how that happened is that my parents, being the people that they are, they bought an old 286 computer, and on that computer there was this amazing flight simulator, fully rendered in MS-DOS graphics, that fully captured what it was like to fly a plane right out of that naval base and then just crash the computer because it wasn't a very good one. The point is, I was surprised at how something that my parents used for all this work could encapsulate this plane inside. I was like, wow, I gotta do that too. So how did I set myself to do that? Well, first I started by breaking the computer, seeing how it worked on it. My parents weren't very happy about that. Needless to say, I decided to try it again with the next one. And after maybe breaking 4 or 5 computers, I started changing the knack of, fixing them, getting them back to work. And maxing out my parents' credit card. But the point being is that, yes, you think of a computer, you think of a game, you think, yes, there's something in the computer that will make the game work. At least that's how a boy that's this tall would think. And for the longest time, I went to study computer science and got into programming and design and like fixing computers and stuff. But that's not it. That's not where it was. Because after making a website, making tons of websites, started making websites for people, starting fixing computers, making a computer fixing business, making an arcade, all of these things, I was still not any more closer to figuring out how it worked inside the thing that made it playing go. So what I did then is I decided, well, I'm going to abandon all of this, all of that work for, and I'm going to move to Toronto to study computer science. And no, that's not how you make games. See, games are more than just computer science. They're more than just art. They're a complete experience, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I found out that makes games. And I owe this to a very special friend named Ian. He's not here today, but he helped me figure out by bringing me to another IGDA event, which was class warfare. And in there, I saw Michael Todd, and he was giving like expressions about how, yeah, you go to university and they teach you stuff, but they don't teach you how to make games. The only way you can learn how to make games is by making games. And here is how I started making games, by making games. You know, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing, but until you get out there and you sit down and you start putting down the work and making games, you won't really know how to do it. And the problem is you can't really do it on your own. So that's where I found out this is how you start making games. You come to events like these. You listen to people talking up here like me. You talk to the person next to you. Come on, shake their hand and say, hey, would you like to make a game today? Maybe not today, we have a social, but tomorrow for sure we'll start making a game. Get down, start making stuff, and the next time that you have that feels, man, to get that game out there, to get something, to get any experience that you've ever experienced, be it a really boring line of customs in the airport, or, you know, an amazing trip to Los Angeles. Anything can be turned into that experience, and how you do it is by connecting with the people around you. That's how I started making games. Thanks to IGDA and thanks to friends at Ryerson and the Game Makers Union at Ryerson, everything there. Just the environment made the game. It wasn't me just alone, it was all the support I got from everyone.
1 minute.
And if there's anything I want you to take home from this, aside from my tardiness, is that you have plentiful resources. And stuff like this, talks like the ones you hear today, and the people around you can help you on the way. And if you've already made games, please help everyone. Help everyone around and help me. If you like modeling or spread work. Right. So you can come help me, or you can help the person around you, because the more games we have, the more games we can play. And the more little kids like this we can surprise by showing them how a plane fits in a box, in a phone like this one. How you can fit something as amazing as a plane or as cool as their favorite Italian plumber in a little phone like this one. All right, so thank you everyone for your attention. And,
Are you just gonna leave now? That would be awesome. If you were just like roll it, be like 5 minute talk, done, I'm out. So yeah, I was a little bit worried about this 5 minute thing because I assumed that people wouldn't have necessarily timed themselves exactly to 5 minutes, and I would have to start yelling at people. But that hasn't happened, and I'm happy about that. So next, oh good. We've got Daniel Steger. Oh no! And his topic is time to give up, but in a good way. So you know me. Hopefully for one of these games, hopefully not in the last Dragon Rave night when I talked for 5 minutes about Xbox and no one knew what I was talking about. But I wanted to talk about kind of where I succeed, where I failed. And so this is kind of probably the most self-emotional talk, the least informative talk, and the least prepared talk you'll see tonight. So about 4 years ago when I started developing games, actually I started 5 years ago, but I don't really want to talk about my days at Rockstar. There's no other side.
at Rockstar Games. I worked there for about 8 months, and let's just say I left after 8 months. And I was like, okay, Xbox indie games, that's a new thing. What can I make that'll make money on Xbox Live indie games? How can I make this a living? I look at the top iOS charts, and some random artillery game is in first. So I made my first game, Tank Strike. It did okay, and I was like, that's pretty good for my first attempt at making money on my own as a game, making games. But I'm gonna have to step it up over time. So then I was like, okay, everyone in the house has Rock Band or Guitar Hero and has those stupid plastic drums and controllers. I should make a rhythm game. Someone with no musical talent should make a rhythm game. About 8 months later, the game came out and sold about 300 copies at $5. Not very good. Not very good spending of about a year. And then I released a few other games. I made a pumpkin carving sim and the Christmas tree, even though I'm Jewish. And I was like, I'm not making enough money to make a living off this after about a year and a half. And so I'm like, okay, I'm done. I started making my resume, or updating my resume, and being like, okay, I'm going to apply to Ubisoft, they're coming to Toronto, and going to apply to this place, and I'm a bit bored. I should do a side project just for fun. Just, I don't intend to care about how it does on the market. I'll just make something that's my idea, and just as a joke. And that was Baby Maker Extreme. And that kind of paid for about 2 years of development where I had been failing. Like, okay, I guess I can keep making games, as long as every few years I make something dumb like this. And some more time goes, and I'm thinking, okay, Baby Maker Extreme, that was a sexual innuendo game. I have no qualms about that. So suddenly I started making things like Blow Me Up and Stick Massage. Because Xbox Live Indie Games was full of massage apps, and I wanted to make a massage app that had no massaging. Neither of these games did well at all. I thought, I'm a genius. I know how to make games. Sexual innuendo. No, it sometimes works, but suddenly my jokes got all forced. And a few months ago, I was starting to think, Xbox One's coming. And I don't want to make Minecraft clones. That's what's dominating Xbox Live indie games. A bunch of Minecraft clones and FPSs. So I'm like, I'm probably going to leave the platform in a few months once Xbox One comes. I'm going to switch to Unity, go to PC, see if I can make a living there.
1 minute.
Okay, that's fine. And so ToeJam came, and I was like, okay, last year I had made a game called Jetpack Rapture ToeJam, tried to sell it on XPlay, and I was like, that game made $60. So this year I was like, I'm just going to make stupidest game again. I don't care about selling it. I even have in my design doc, don't bother forwarding whatever game I make. It's not going to make money. And then I made Mount Your Friend. And it's the new Baby Maker Extreme for me. Yeah, it's sexual innuendo again, but it was made out of this carefree attitude about what to do. And I was saying that this won't be informative specifically because I'm telling you not to care about what you make, to succeed. So now it's going to be trying to succeed based on not caring. So thank you.
If you didn't know me play that, you really should, because it's awesome. It's like a two-man shirtless quap. Am I describing that properly? It's like two-man naked quap.
I described it to the press as you make a pile of bodies.
And everyone in the press is like, I know exactly what that's like. How do you think I got in the press? Coming up next, we have the most exciting talk you're ever going to hear in your entire life. So get your hopes up, because it's going to blow your minds. He's going to just tear this house down. Like you said, his time in indie games and his time in indie music.
Okay. Yeah, whatever. 14 years ago, I lived in Montreal and did vocals in a metalcore band. Metal type music played by hardcore punk kids, basically. It's time I remember fondly, and looking back now, I realized I was there at an interesting time in scene history. See, sharing music online was just starting to catch on, which had a massive effect on indie music communities. Shows featuring established non-local bands went from attracting a dozen people to hundreds in less than a year. The internet continuously introduced new fans to our scene. Some formed their own bands. A handful of acts, mine included, managed to achieve non-local success. Labels got in touch, tours were booked, t-shirts and records made, and craziest of all, people were buying it. No one was more surprised than we were. Sure, we dreamed about it, but part of us never really believed it would happen. The community largely had an inviting atmosphere. Sure, it was a bit intimidating coming to your first show alone. We could come across as antisocial. But that was often just shyness, and it soon passed. Friendships developed quickly, forged by our common passion for the music. Bands shared gear, song ideas, sometimes even members, and we all had different sounds. What you played wasn't important, it was the feeling behind the music that mattered. Touring deepened our friendships. We felt like warriors in rickety tanks we called tour vans, wandering town to town, unsure what the day would bring, only knowing it was going to be one hell of a ride. I remember long nights in studios and practice spaces, heated arguments over minute elements of songs, but also the excitement that every show and record was pushing things further than we had gone before. And all this to a backdrop of audience members made of metalcore fans, photographers, journalists, and friends. It wasn't all positive, though. Disagreements occurred, but most issues were resolved through conversation and understanding. Differences of opinion and lifestyle were respected within bands and the fan community. Acting otherwise was frowned upon. At least it was at first. As time went on, some issues weren't dealt with maturely, and perceptions in the community changed. Suddenly, bands that went for an accessible sound or veered too far from metalcore's roots were sellouts. Nothing was hardcore enough anymore. And God forbid you signed with a major label. Whether underground or hitting it big, you couldn't win. Bands weren't immune either. A sense of entitlement grew in us as we got older. New bands were dismissed as fads and new fans as 6-month faces, a derogatory term implying how long it would hang around before jumping on the next trend. It still leaves a bad taste in my mouth thinking about it. For me personally, my great failure was on tour. A colleague sympathized with me about our band getting passed up for a metalcore fest that summer, while another Montreal band, friends of ours and part of the community, were on the bill. I spat out that the fest was all who you know, and they were sellouts for playing. It was a fucking shit. What the hell? It was a flat-out wrong comment I made out of frustration and envy. It got me exactly what I deserved. I came home and members of the band, my friends, literally turned their backs on me. We smoothed things over, but I never really forgave myself for it. It still hurts to know I caused a temporary rift over something as silly as a spot in a concert lineup. Breakups were worst of all. My band pretty much split amicably, and that was something I'm really proud of. But one act in particular I knew just exploded, leaving friendships irreparably damaged. I knew they had grown apart and changed with success and time, but I thought they would have resolved things as friends, or at least as professionals. They owed each other that. They were all on the same side and in it for the same things. You didn't last long if you weren't in this for the right reasons. It's a shame it came to that. Time's passed now, the metalcore community in Montreal has long since moved on from the bands of my day, but it's still there and stronger than ever, fueled by new fans, bands, and sounds. There's no doubt mistakes are still being made, but every day its members show each other respect. It gets stronger, more creative, more inclusive. In any case, what a delightful surprise to find myself in the Toronto game development scene 14 years later.
1 minute.
I'm honored to bear witness and be part of a whole new scene of creators who dedicate untold hours to their chosen craft, earning acclaim and attention on a larger worldwide scale. Disagreements will appear to be sure, but our compassion and dedication will triumph over misunderstandings. Things may never be perfect, but provided we keep communications open, respect the past, and continue working towards an inclusive future together, we can avoid behaviors destructive to an artistic community and instead make things bigger and better. I hope everyone is as thrilled as I am to be involved here and now in this community, because this is such an amazing time to be part of it. Trust me, it's going to be one hell of a ride. Thanks.
I'm going to get in front of a bunch of game makers to talk about how making games is super cool. Sell out. I don't know why I'm looking at my list. There's no one left. So what we've started to do is we're now filling the spots with our favorite people, and also you.
How is the Legend of Zelda?
It's Ben Rivers, you know, the creator of Home, now on iOS and Android.
I don't have a rant, but I wrote one in the last 5 minutes, so here's what
I will still yell at you.
No, I know, I don't do, so I can't. Okay, so some of you guys know, like I said before, that I am a teacher here, and teaching game design, but I also teach illustration. And what I do is teach illustration as a business, which for the first 2 weeks means everyone in my class hates me. Because I'm their evil dad telling them they need to make money, and that they need to do something with their lives other than be artists. Don't worry, this is going to be real cool in a second. that's what I tell them the first day. But it leads me to think about a holistic approach to everything I do. So I make games, obviously, but I do them by myself. And most of you guys know that I'm pretty much self-taught in everything. I'm a loser, it's true. And everything I've had to learn, I've kind of had to figure out by falling on my ass and figuring out better the next time. But one thing that always bugs me is when I talk to people who either want to get into games or are getting into games and not really digging it, I wonder why they're not giving it their all. They're not falling on their ass. They're not afraid to totally screw up. Or they are afraid to totally screw up, and they're not willing to just sort of go out and learn what they need to learn to get it done. Now, I'm not a sane person by most people's standards, and I usually just say, well, if I'm going to do something, I guess I'm going to do it. It's not really smart, but that's never stopped me before. I should be saying this in the school that I work in. So,
yes, you should.
So, people come to me sometimes and ask about what you do to get into games. And like everyone has said here before, the right answer is you make a game. Now, the problem is, 75% of the time when I tell someone that, they say no. Or they come up with an excuse. And I say, no, really, that's the only thing you can do. And you could probably do it this weekend, because there are a million free tools that could let you do it, because that's kind of what I do. And again, I'm not really smart with this stuff. I'm not like you. But a lot of people don't realize that, like any other creative endeavor, this is a huge amount of work. Whether you're doing this, for your 5th time, your 500th time, or whatever, it is going to be a lot of work. Like, I've been working on Home now for like 2.5 years, which is sad, but that's kind of what it's been. And when I do graphic novels, sometimes I'm staring at the thing for a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on what's going on. You have to put the time in, and there's no way to get around that. So we get a lot of folks who come in and say, I don't want to do that, and I say, okay, we'll go do something else, because this is kind of actually like a lot of bullshit work, like a ton of work. I spent like 3 days trying to fix a bug that anyone with half a brain could have figured out, and guess what? That's my job now. I should be able to do this better, but I don't. The other thing is that we often get in the position of creators and wonder, well, what do we not like? Why am I doing this? Well, I want to do this because I want to have a contribution. I want to make games that other people aren't making. And, okay, I'm just going to be an idiot here for a second. Here's a game that I played this year. It starred a white person. They had a gun. I hid behind cover. There was a circular area. I held L1 and pressed R1 to shoot somebody. I upgraded some weapons. Probably collected a few things that gave me bonus points. Maybe came back when I was bored to collect stuff I liked. And I occasionally engaged in extreme close-up violence with another human being. What game am I describing?
Animal Crossing.
Yeah! So here's another thing. I played an indie game this year, whatever it is. I I went screen by screen. I solved puzzles in an action platforming environment. The game may have featured a quiet, haunting score and a very beautiful, unique, two-dimensional art style. We don't get a free pass just because we don't make any money. If you want to contribute, you have to contribute. I remember going to a Comic-Con several years ago and seeing everyone in the artist alley making the same superhero and zombie comics that I saw in the paid artist section. I said, well, if you can do anything, why are you doing this? And it's true. We need to work a little harder because we're the ones saying things should be different or things should be better.
1 minute.
So prove it. So the final thing is this. If you're going to make an indie game, 1/3 of your job is going to be making an indie game. The rest is going to be selling your... And I get a lot of people ask, well, man, you're so lucky that you get to make games for a living. I work my fucking ass off. That's what I do. I think about this shit all day, all night, every single day. And I don't just make games. I do all my own promotion. I design all my own websites. I contact every PR person. I fly to cities. I do all my own support. I do all that stuff. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but I do it because I don't have a team. And if you want to be a one-person indie studio, guess what? I hope you like Dreamweaver. I hope you like the telephone. I hope you like learning how to write an email, because that's what you're going to be doing 95% of the time. And guess what? That's great, because that means you're working for yourself. And as creators, all we want to do is do our own thing. So take charge of it and do it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, so here's what's happening. People who put on events know that people ramble too long in their time and that stuff happens and that things go slowly. So we've got maybe a half an hour now, because someone did a really great job of stopping everyone in 5 minutes. You're welcome. And so what we had planned to do, unless this just goes horribly well, in which case we might just leave, is if you want 2.5 minutes to just come up here and rant about whatever you want to rant about, we're going to do that. It's only 2.5 minutes. You can fake that. Do I have any takers? Because I'm not doing this all night. So we got...
I need mine.
Oh.
We missed what?
What?
He's got slides and everything.
Oh. Way to go, Ryan. Why don't you go on my list? Let's find you on my list and see where I fucked it up.
Yeah, that.
Oh! Good. So this is Daniel Mervin talking about graphics versus imagination.
Okay. How do I use this? No. What's next? Oh shit. Sorry, guys. Noob. Okay, so yeah, this, as it says, the business talk of mine and mine alone, which that means they're probably going to be really stupid. I'm an animator, so I work in a completely visual medium, and I'm about to discredit everything that I strive to attain in my entire career. So, yeah, I'm talking about graphics versus imagination, or imagination versus graphics. I thought I'd establish a sliding scale and a spectrum along which to do this. This is completely non-academic. So this is no graphics. That's basically a book, not a drawing of a book, and that's the opposite of no graphics. That's all the graphics. All the graphics. So no graphics is not just a book, but we're talking about text-based games, which still exist, and I still dabble in, and audio-only games. Like games made for blind people, which are actually fucking awesome. So try playing. There's one called Swamp, which is like a survival horror. If you haven't played it, try it. You can get it online for free. Okay, so what are bad graphics? Now, this is what I think of bad graphics, and I wrote this today, like an hour ago. So, like, don't have a go at me if I missed out something you think's bad. I'm not going to be talking about any of those things, though. Instead, I'm going to take you through a journey through time and graphics. This is my own personal experiences of games that I think have kind of shitty graphics that I played recently and I found really compelling. And so this is my case for imagination versus graphics. Wasteland came out in 1988. Yeah. They're doing a remake of this. Well, it's not a remake. It's not going to be that similar. It's going to retain the good stuff, like the humour. Now, this is what you work with, and I've been playing text-based adventures. So compared to them, this is fucking amazing graphics. In it, you get to beat up children and prostitutes, which is one of them is still acceptable in games, the other isn't. So this is one of my favourite games ever. This is called Red Baron. It's fucking amazing. And seriously, like, they lost the code for the physics in this, and like, there's a guy on the internet who's been trying to track down like the coding for this game. He still hasn't, but it's still unbeatable. This is what you're fighting over in Red Baron. That's the Western Front. That's 2 lines on a brown smear, and that's all you need. Because with a bit of historical context, like you can imagine that it's the titanic struggle between the 2, really powerful empires. There's a game that came out a couple of years ago, Rise of Flight, which is a modern World War I fight sim, and it's really good. But like they have really lovingly rendered villages in it, but there's no people, and you can land in the villages. And I just think if you're going to do good graphics, you kind of need to go all the way. I can't land in a village and there's no people there. You may as well just abstract it like that game did. Okay, Elite Plus. I'm going to go through this really quickly. Elite Plus had these pages that were called planet data screens, which gave you like cursed information, but it was kind of enough to give you like to colour the world and the universe that you lived in. And it's really kind of Hitchhiker's Guide style stuff. This planet makes the Geysian lethal brandy, which is all I need to know. That's brilliant. I want to go there. Cool. Okay, I was going to pick you can pick pretty much any 90s turn-based strategy game. I picked this one called Age of Rifles because I love it, but it's also like fucking dry. And it looks like this. But when you actually make a move, it looks like this. And this is just text. But when I first played this game, I found this really compelling. Union 5th Wisconsin launches assault. Union Force approaches Confederate position. Like this, so this is just a tit-for-tat account of one move you made in one turn of this game. But it includes little messages. This particular one doesn't, but it includes little messages about the leader tried to rally the unit and was killed in the process. Which I find really evocative, and it's kind of all you need sometimes. Silent Hill. Okay, this is basically what Silent Hill looks like. It's grey and brown. And I just kept this in because I thought it was funny. Okay, yeah, it was the quote from Truman Capote. Truman, get out of my mind. Whoa. And this game had dead babies in it. So I thought I'd put that in there as well. But the thing about Silent Hill, yeah, it's dark and it's murky and the graphics are really muddy, and people complain about the graphics in Silent Hill, and yet they're shit scared of it. So, just think about that. Like, all you need is a good imagination. Like, there's so little you actually see in Silent Hill until, the dead bloody babies arrive. And as Terry Pratchett says, the trouble with unimaginable horrors is they're only too easy to imagine, which I find completely true, especially when playing games like Silent Hill or the other games like that. Okay, so think how much you really need to put into your games, and think about stripping it down. And I know I'm preaching to converted here because you work in indie games and you need to economize anyway. But think about those logic systems and how the player perceives it.
That's 5 minutes.
Oh shit. Okay. I'm just going to quickly go to my last. So all you need.
That's
Okay.
That's 5 minutes.
All you need is
Thank you.
sorry about forgetting that you
I mean, I could just let them keep talking, I suppose, but then what kind of a moderator would I be? Because now we're back to nothing again. Really? The rules are my real downfall here. I'm going to stick with them. Yeah, so let's go back to that thing where we're talking about how we got nothing going on for 15 minutes. Yeah, so who wants to talk for 2.5 minutes? Do you want to? Is anyone not wanting to talk for 2.5 more minutes? Really? Not a single person? You are liars. There's one person who does not care about this.
I fucking love you guys. Thank you. I really appreciate that. To be fair, you didn't give me the 1 minute warning, so.
I did. You're a little loud.
Oh, sorry. I'm a little shrill. This irritating accent. Okay, so where were we at? Okay, so Terry Pratchett. Okay, so I put this question out onto the internet, which is probably a mistake, and asked them what they thought of graphics versus imagination, and everyone wouldn't shut up about Dwarf Fortress, which I get. You know, it looks like this, and yet it's one of the most compelling games if you can like take the time to get into it, which I can't. But so people argue between this and this, or the various like graphic versions of Dwarf Fortress that exist out there. You can put different graphical palettes on top of it. There's loads of purists that like this. There's loads of people that think, what's the point of playing an impenetrable game when you can easily just add this on and become so much more easy to play? I don't know where I stand on that, frankly, but I thought I'd include it because that's what people on the internet would shut the fuck up about. So yeah, this is it. In conclusion, as I said, like you know this stuff, so just don't worry about economizing and don't think you have to make everything look amazing. If you know, something you can suggest. And use the player's imagination, because that's one of the most powerful tools that you have. Yeah. All right, cool. And there's always Twine. Twine has the best graphics, and that's why I wanted to end on that. Yeah, thanks for letting me come down and finish that, guys.
Following the rules are fun. That's how we do things. Okay, it's 2.5 minutes. We got enough time for 2 of them with some witty Andy banter in between. Who's got something clever to say? I'm not going to stall this for too long, but this gentleman up here wants to talk for 2.5 minutes.
I'll take 2.5.
And hopefully it's interesting. What are you going to talk about?
Community.
Like the show?
No, the community that plays video games.
Oh,
so many
like these guys. Okay, that's a good transition because you're going to talk to the community that.
Alright, so 2.5 minutes, I gotta cut this short, no introductions. Community is really important. A lot of video games are driven by who plays them. It's not what you want the video game to be about, it's not the story you want to tell, it's about who's gonna sit down, pay money for this game, put time into it. The question is, how do you make sure people are gonna care enough to actually play your game? As all of us who are trying to get our games out there, this is really important. I don't feel like enough of us are taught. It's not a course you can't take to learn how to make people care about your video game. Do you do self-promotion? Do you get a good review? Do you go out there and tell people your game is the best? Play it. You need to love this game. What's going to work for you? You look at a game like Binding of Isaac. You look at a game like Minecraft. You look at a game like Terraria. They don't teach you how to play the game. They don't tell you what the rules are. You go online, you ask. You try to find out from Google. You try to find out from Game FAQs. IGN, I don't care where you go, you turn to somebody. So how do you make your game so infectious that you make sure that one person plays it and tells 2 more people to play so they can tell them what to do? How do you guarantee that your game is going to be the one people are talking about and not just the one that gets talked about? You want to make sure that this one sticks in people's minds. You want to make sure that a community builds itself around your game, as opposed to trying to get a community already into it.
1 minute left?
Well, 1 minute left, so... Can't think of anything.
Answer!
Well,
It's a spoon.
a spoon. There you go. A spoon. If you can make a video game about a spoon that everybody else has to figure out, why is it about a spoon? You've probably got the cornerstone in the market already. As soon as people are asking questions about your game, you're guaranteeing that people are going to talk about it. Find a way to make your game so over the top, people need to ask what. People need to ask why. People need to learn about it. And then, people make channels devoted on watching other people play your game. It's not hard, it's just tricky.
That was nice. Okay, so we're gonna do it one more time. One more time? It's going to run crazy if nobody else talks.
Don't let that happen.
There we go. That's how you get things done. What are you going to talk about?
Tropes in video games.
Sweet. Alright, so I was playing.
My name's Brian. I was playing Alex Kidd in Miracle World when I was a kid, and it's a video game where you side-scroller and you collect fruit. And I was thinking recently, why was I collecting fruit? And I realized it's because it's Pac-Man. You collect fruit. It's the very first video game, kind of, Pong maybe. Why did Pac-Man have fruit? Because it was based on slot machines, the other thing where you feed endless quarters into. Why did slot machines have fruit? And that's because apparently you weren't allowed to gamble in a lot of these places where they had slot machines. So you would put in money and you would maybe win some gum. It would be the flavor like cherry or orange or whatever. So basically, if you're still playing a video game where you're collecting fruit, it's based on laws that prevented people from gambling for anything other than gum. And so I'm trying to use this to illustrate, when you're playing a video game, when you're creating a video game, think about what's in that video game and why it's there. Why is there a crate? Because squares were easier to create, or cubes were easier to create in a video game. And hearts in Zelda, why are we using hearts to represent life? Can we use it to represent love? Can you gain more health if it's a heart system? By falling in love with a character, does that increase your heart? And use the tropes that are there, that exist, to create more interesting versions of the things, and research the tropes and figure out why they were there to begin with and start to play with that. That's all I have to say.
So we're going to stop here. And so what we're going to do, I'm eventually going to give the mic to Ryan, and Ryan's going to probably say some stuff. No, he's not at all. Good. Okay. So then we're going to be going to After Hours at Versailles, which is, we're having a clap off. I don't know what that is. I know what a clap on is. You get 2.5 minutes, man.
It's not the 2.5 minutes thing.
Okay, what do you?
Okay.
So Andy's going to run this. I'm just going to refresh Andy's memory about what we talked about 3 times. So if you were at the last Rant session, yes!
Okay, I know what we're doing now.
Okay, Andy, here, don't hurt yourself. You're at the last Rant night. It's called Open Mic Night, and we had a very special award to give out to the crowd favorite ranter. It was called the Matthew Kumar Little Squeegee Award, and it is a golden, a solid gold, 24-karat squeegee. And if you don't know the reference, then that's a great conversation to have with somebody over a beer later on at Versailles. So the Golden Squeegee Award is going to go to our most skilled ranter of the evening, and I'd love to line everybody up right here, and then Andy's going to do a very energetic club-style clap-off to find out who the crowd enjoy. And obviously, Doucette, you're coming up. So please, even if you were like a last-minute ranter, even if you're a 2.5-minute ranter, come on up, shoulder to shoulder. You know what? If I didn't give him my 2.5 minutes, I would have just said, all I would have said was this. This is my 2.5 minutes. So I'm on the committee with the IGDA people. They're wonderful people. I'm actually going to make a plea for diversity, which is kind of weird, and I have to say it right or I'm going to get murdered. But take a look at this lineup of wonderful ranting people.
More beards.
We clearly need more beards. No, so the committee is wonderfully diverse, but we're all volunteers, and I get hurt. I really do get hurt because we get sniped at, guys. Like we get sniped at on those feedback forums. We've had people write down, "Oh, your panel's not diverse enough." Right? So we have like the most diverse panel the next week, and then we get somebody standing up yelling at us, saying, "Oh, women, no." So this is a really important issue to people. Obviously, this is obviously such an important issue to people. So important that when we do a community-wide open call for anyone to come and give a rant, and even at the end, come up and do 2 minutes, anyone in the audience, all we get is mostly, with the exception of one person, white males. And friends, I hate white males. They're so evil. They're just seething evil. I can't stand white males. Why do we gotta have so many white males talking? If this is such a crucial issue to you, I'm gonna stop short of saying, shut up. But I'm just gonna say, this is so crucial. Next time we do this, I wanna see some ladies up there, and I wanna see some brown skin.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so we're gonna do this like spring break style. I'm gonna point it at a man, and you're going to applaud. And then I'm gonna decide who raised the roof the highest, and then they're gonna get the little squeegee award. That's Kumar's little squeegee award. Yeah. So take your time. So we got Ryan Craig. Everybody, because the top was on that. And you, this guy here.
Let the audience know that they can't clap equally loudly for every guy.
Oh my goodness.
Ian. Dan.
I know you are. Speaker number 1. Stand up. I didn't catch his name. Ladies. Spoon. Okay, so we're gonna Daniel, go a step forward. Everyone else, no point is go away. We'll do. Brandon, come forward. And Mike, you say. Oh God, no, yeah, not you. Yeah, you go away. You get out of here as well. Yeah, get out of here. All right, so we're gonna do a clap off. We're just do this real quick, okay? Okay. We got number 1. Number 2. Number 3.
I really did. I just moved here, so thank you for the warm welcome.
Thank you.